video, we're going to talk about the employee experience. It's an emerging idea in HR and one I think we're going to see a lot more of. So let's get going right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams and the host of HR Shop Talk. On this show, you get expert insight into all things HR. I encourage you to subscribe to the show by clicking on the button at the bottom of the screen, or you can subscribe to the podcast to keep learning from my smart and experienced guests. Today, my guest is Gil Cohen. He's the founder of Employee Experience Design and has a passion for helping people co-create experiences that improve both business outcomes and the lives of employees. The work that Gil does focuses on aligning human and organizational needs for mutual benefit. Hi, Gil. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Looking forward to this.
Absolutely, me too.
Yeah. So let's just dive in right away because I know I have a lot of questions to ask you. So first question though, what's meant by employee experience?
The employee experience is the experience we have be working for someone. That is included all of the touch points, all of the interactions we have as a result of our employer sum up to be our employee experience.
Okay.
So the thing about it is, just one last thing is,
sure.
Every employee is having an experience. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. The fact that employees are having experience is nothing new. The first apprentice thousands of years ago was having an experience. But it's only more recently that we started to recognize why we should care and what we can do about
it. Speaking of caring, why should employers care about the employee experience other than, of course, it's a decent thing to do, but what are the business reasons?
The business reasons are that the employee experience that people have is ultimately creating the business outcomes that you achieve. It's not just about making people happy and satisfied. Certainly those are aspects of a great employee experience, but they're also about getting the work done. Because like I said, every employee is having an experience. Every single one. Some of those aspects of our experience are driving performance. Some of those aspects are driving demotivation. Some of them are driving us elsewhere. So if leaders understand that the experience that you create for your employees is ultimately determining your bottom line. If you have an environment where you need innovation, for example, right? If that a lot of organizations, they need innovation. Well, then you need to also create an experience where people feel trusted. You need to create an experience where people are able to take risks and not be punitive for taking risks. You need to align the experience that people have with the outcomes that you're looking for. So that's why you should care, because ultimately it's creating all of your outcomes for your organization, whether you realize it or not.
So I think we're going to get into that more in a minute, but let's talk first about the employee experience in general. What principles are foundational to the employee experience?
So the principles that are foundational to the employee experience are really around psychology, behavioral economics, design thinking. These are some of the principles that are fundamental, because it starts with, first of all, the individual, in understanding that we're all different. Two different people can have the exact same employee experience. One person will be delighted by it, one person will be miserable. So that's where it needs to start, with the individuality and the psychology. Then there's the behavioral economics of, you need to design organizations in a way that is going to encourage the behaviors that you're looking for. So like I said, I'll use the example again for innovation. So if you are looking for innovation, we'll take it on a micro level among your team. A leader, when speaking first, then stops innovation, because what happens just psychologically is that everybody tends to line up behind the leader's idea.
Right.
So therefore, the experience they need to create within a meeting environment is that they let other people speak, share their ideas before the leader then shares their own. So that's why it's important to understand how we encourage behaviors, how we discourage behaviors, and what leaders are doing to create the environment in which ultimately people execute. And then the ideas behind design thinking is the fact that to really create a great experience, you need to be user-centric.
Okay.
Part of the problem historically of HR departments, part of the problem historically of leadership teams is that decisions would be made at that level and then executed out. Instead of recognizing that every organization is different and you can't apply ideas that you come up with in a vacuum or you hear from an HBR article or something like that, you can't just implement that and expect people to respond effectively. Whereas if they use a design thinking mentality of starting with empathy, starting with the user and understanding what's their current experience, how is it aligned with what we're trying to accomplish, how isn't it aligned with what we're trying to accomplish, how is it aligned with what they believe in, what they're trying to accomplish, and how isn't, and understanding where those gaps are to really find then, the ideation, definition, etc., of what to do about it. Because a lot of times HR will decide on their own what to do about it, or decide from external sources of what to do about it, as opposed to looking internally and looking where their areas of leverage really are.
So I can't help myself but ask at this point, even though I know we're going to do a whole episode on nothing but creating an employee experience. Where does someone start? It just does feel a bit like overwhelming or a lot.
So the first thing before you start is to understand you're not starting at zero. It's not the kind of thing where just because you haven't been intentional about it doesn't mean that there aren't things you're doing well already, because that can feel very overwhelming for people. But where you need to start is in the current state. You need to start by creating an experience map of what is it like for employees right now. And then in same time as that, you also need to do analysis of where is the organization going? What is the organization trying to accomplish? Because then you can gain an understanding of where are the gaps between the current state, their current experience, what they're trying to accomplish, and what the company's trying to accomplish. Because like I said before, every outcome from the company comes from somebody's employee experience. So if you know where you're trying to go, then you can help align those experiences behind it. But where you start is really just understand where you are now. Okay. Because that will then guide you toward your next steps.
So let's talk about the employee experience and culture. Both of those are kind of vague concepts. So can you marry them up?
Okay, so absolutely. So culture, and it's one of those difficult ideas because it came from a certain idea, then a lot of people implemented it their own way and gave it their own definition and their own meaning over time. That's what got us to the, Silicon Valley companies that thought culture was a foosball table and parties on Friday afternoon, when the reality is that culture isn't how we feel. Culture isn't the office vibe. Those things aren't culture. Culture comes from the idea around anthropology of looking at the organization like it's a culture, like it's a society. So culture, in terms of an organization, are really about the dominant ways of thinking and acting within the organization. These are about, are we risk averse or are we comfortable with risk? Right. Do we need consensus or are we able to go out on our own? How do we view failure? Okay. Those are the kinds of things that are full important aspects of the culture. Those aspects of the culture are inputs into people's employee experience. Right. So if I'm in a culture that's risk averse, I am going to present a out there idea that's going to get squashed very quickly. And so now Now, this is where it's important where we look at alignment, because culture in a vacuum isn't good or bad, but is it right for the people? And is it right for what you're trying to accomplish? Because some people are risk averse and are more comfortable in a risk averse environment. Some people are risk takers and are more comfortable in a risk taking environment. But when we put them in the opposite environments, there's frustration, there's stress, and there's a lack of alignment with what the organization is trying to accomplish.
If you found this enlightening, subscribe to see all the episodes and comment. What do you think is most exciting about this idea of the employee experience? Let us know in the comment section below. And back to you, Gil. So another related concept is employee engagement. So can you talk about the relationship between the employee experience and engagement?
Absolutely. So engagement is one of the outcomes from the experience that we have.
Okay.
Because the inputs into our experience, whether it be clarity, whether it be an alignment with the vision of the organization, whether it be autonomy or mastery of a role, all of these things go into how engaged we are with the work that we do. So it's employee experience is the input, engagement is the output, but it's really in the middle, because the reason engagement is relevant is that it's then correlated to discretionary effort, productivity, retention, etc. But engagement is just one of those items that experience impacts.
Okay, so this is a big question here. So ultimately, what is the goal of the employee experience?
From my perspective, if you ask a CEO, what is the goal of employee experience? They should be telling you probably a combination of the bottom line and that people are able to go home at the end of the day content, satisfied, at minimum, not miserable.
Yeah.
That should be where they're looking at it, because they should absolutely have a focus that the goal as a business of employee experience is to get people to be productive, to get people to make sure the company is successful.
Yes.
But the other side of that is that it can be done in a way where you're also making sure people feel well, that people aren't stressed, that people aren't feeling that feeling in the pit of their stomach on Sundays afternoon because they know they have work for the rest of the week. Right. And so that's the ultimate goal for a CEO. But then looking at it from an individual's perspective, what they want from employee experience is really individualized to a person. Because are you the kind of person that you're looking to just make as much money from a company? Are you looking to grow intellectually? Are you looking for just a place where you can make a decent living, but you get to talk to people all day? So ultimately, that's from the employee experience, that's their goals.
How similar is the employee experience in one employer compared to another? You have talked about some examples here, but I presume that it should be fairly similar. Like we all want to go home with energy and feeling well. Like
how similar should it be, or how similar is it?
Is it? Well, should it be? Should it be? Because I know that it'll be terrible in some places.
It will be terrible in some places. How similar should it be? Still quite varied. An example of that I'll give you is the fact that there was a survey out for executives asking them what percentage of the days per week are people needed to be in the office to facilitate culture. 20% of employees said 5 days a week.
Okay.
They also asked a separate survey, completely separate survey, slightly different question. Employees, how many days a week would you like to be back in the office? 20% also said 5 days a week. So there you have, in theory at least, if everybody actually lives according to what they say on the survey, 20% of companies approximately, it's even like 20.8. The numbers, it's really funny. The numbers were within 0.1 of each other, should be in the office 5 days a week or should be in the workplace 5 days a week. However, from there, the discrepancies grew that there are more employees looking to work from home more often than there are leaders. Because of the diversity, and again, this goes back to the psychology, the individual differences, because of the diversity among us, there's so many different ways we can thrive. Some people thrive in an environment under high pressure, working fast, working hard. That's for them. Whereas for somebody else, they're looking to put in their 8 hours, do what needs to get done, feel like they did a good job at the end of the day, and don't want to think about it anymore. Those two people may or may not find success within the same environment, so they may need something different. So one company will find success will be very different from another company, which is part of the problem why, historically, when leaders and HR people would look for the latest fad and try to implement it, the latest fad might not be right for you. The big talk these days is around remote work and hybrid work. Every company is going to find a different balance. Every company and every individual has a different balance. When we have alignment between what the balance of what the people are looking for and what the employer is looking for, that's where both sides can gain benefit from it. If you have an employee who loves being in the office 1 day every 2 weeks, and your company says that's all we need from you, and they make the most out of that 1 day, then they don't mind the commute for that 1 day. Whereas there are other people who, if they're not in front of people all day, every day, they're miserable, and they should be at an office or at some frontline work environment. So from my perspective, it should be quite different from environment to environment, and it's about finding what's right for you.
Once an employer has worked on their employee experience, are all employees going to be, and let's say they're doing a bang up job, are all employees going to be happy and satisfied?
I don't know if that's possible. I mean, just because we're humans.
Yeah.
I look at it more around playing the percentages. The highest percent possible of employees are going to be happy and satisfied will result from that.
Okay.
Will it be 100%? Possibly in some circumstances. Is it something to throw your arms up in the air and say, well, it's not 100%, it's not working? No, it's about moving it to a better place, about incremental improvements.
Okay, thanks, Gil. That was a good one. I did 2 episodes on culture, and the first one is right here. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.